Okay, so simple interest is the very basic way of calculating interest, and you'll probably use this probably for the rest of your life. So, the first we want to start with a formula of how to calculate simple interest, and that is I equals PRT, which is simple interest is equal to the principal, which is the original amount that you either borrow or save or invest, times the rate, which is a percentage, times the time, which is the amount of time in years that you're going to either spend paying it back or amount of time that you'll spend keeping it in a savings account or investing. So this problem that you see, well, first off, you want to make sure that you have this formula. That's the most important thing. And then what will happen is you'll see word problems that will give you at least 3 of these different pieces of information, and you'll substitute them and then solve for the unknown value. So we're going to tackle this problem, and we'll tackle a few others that are in your homework book for lesson 6-6. So the first problem we're going to tackle is finding interest on the payment of a loan, which is money borrowed. So Tristan borrowed $14,500 from his brother and promised to pay him back over 5 years at an annual simple interest rate of 7%. How much interest, again, that's the question, how much interest will he pay if he pays off the entire loan at the end of the 5th year? Another question that's here is, what is the total amount that he will repay? So it's a 2-part question. You notice in blue I highlighted the questions, and all of the important amounts or numbers are highlighted in a pinkish red color. So we have to make sure we can identify what is what. So remember, the interest is the amount of money that you would pay, not including what you originally had. So we don't know what the interest is because we see that they're asking us what the interest is. So let's see what we do have. Tristan borrowed $14,500, so that's his principal. So what you want to do is make sure that you note what information is what. So we know that the principal is $14,500. We also know that he promised to pay him back over 5 years. Well, we know that that must be the time. So T equals 5. Okay? And then it says the simple interest rate, which is R, is 7%. Now remember, when you write your interest rate, you have to write it as a decimal. So in order to turn 7% into a decimal, let's just do that over here. We take our decimal point and we move it 2 spaces to the left and then insert the 0. So that means that our interest rate, which is R, equals 0.07. Okay? So now we have to actually figure out how much the interest is. So we go back to our formula. Remember, the formula that we're given, that we'll always come back to, is here. And the formula is I equals PRT. And now what we do is we just substitute. So I equals, the principal is $14,500. The rate is 0.07, and the time is 5. So now we solve. Remember, multiplication is commutative, so you can do whatever's easiest for you first. Since this is all multiplication, I'm going to do 7/100 times 5. So I'm just going to bring down my 14,500. And 7 times 5 is 35. Remember, you multiply as if they're whole numbers. And then I'm looking at this and I see that I have 2 decimal places. So I'm going to go 2 decimal places in my answer. Don't forget your 0 at the front. Okay, so now I have 14,500 times 0.035 or 35 hundredths. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do that work right over here so I don't mess up my format. So I have 14,500 times 0.0, not 0. That's why we have erasers on pencils. 0.35. Remember, when you're multiplying, you don't have to line up decimals. So now I multiply. 5 times 0 is 5. 5 times 0 is, 5 times 0 is 0. 5 times 0 is 0. 5 times 5 is 25. Carry my 2. 5 times 4 is 20. Plus 2 is 22. Carry my 2 again. And then 5 times 1 is 5. Plus 2 is 7. I come down to the 3. My 5 is now finished. I put a 0 as a placeholder, and I like to put a little X in there so I don't mix it up. 3 times 0 is 0. 3 times 0 is 0. 3 times 5 is 15. I'm going to cross out that 2, and I'm going to put a 1 up there. Okay. 4 times 3 is 12, plus the 1 is 13. And then 3 times, cross out the 2, carry my 1. And then 3 times 1 is 3, plus 1 is 4. So let me just check my multiplication and make sure I did it correctly. 5 times 0, 5 times 0, 25, 22, 7. And then I have 0, 0, 15, 13, 4. Okay. So now I add, and I have 0, 0, 5, 7, 10, carry my 1, and 5. I look and see how many decimal places I had in the problem. I had none here. I have 2 here. So my answer, I'll have to move 2 decimal places. So I'll go 1, 2. So that means that my interest is, don't forget my comma, $5,075. Now I'm not finished because the question specifically asked me not only what is the interest, but it also asked me what is the total amount that he will repay. So now I have to look at that word total, and total I know means add. So I'm going to add my interest to my principal. So let's just make sure we know that the total, excuse my writing, equals interest plus the principal. So my total equals $5,075 plus my principal, which is $14,500. So now I'm going to erase my workspace over here. So I have space to add. And now I have 14,500 plus my 5,075, and I have 575, 91. So the total amount that he will invest is $19,575, and you always circle your answer. Now, since this is a word problem, you would want to make sure that you have a complete sentence. So your complete sentence would be, Tristan will pay $5,075 in interest, and the total amount he will repay is $19,575. So I'm going to do a few problems from your homework book. It's lesson 6 of chapter 6. And what I want you to do is